Hi everyone, Rod here with part 2 of how to access the camera and photo library on your device. And we're going to continue this tutorial focusing on 3 things. First, how to request and verify device availability and permission from the user. Second, we're going to learn how to correctly handle the 4 authorization statuses. And third, I'm going to show you how to improve the probability your users will tap allow when being asked for access by our app. On the last video, we left off with a simple app that brings up an action sheet and lets you user choose from using the camera or the photo library. But let's see what happens when we tap Don't Allow. We can already see that this is kind of a bad experience for the user. They are left with a blank screen and part of your app is basically useless. So how do we solve this problem? Well, let's start by adding a couple of references up here. First one to AV Foundation, and the second one to Photos. And then we need to check for the availability of the device. Well, we're going to do that by adding an if statement to where we add our actions. If UI image picker controller dot is source type available, and the type we're going to check for here is camera, then we'll add our action. Format this, you just have to Control I. We're going to do the same for the photo library by calling if UI image picker controller is source type available dot photo library then we'll add our action. And let's format this. And let's run it on the simulator. You'll notice that the camera button won't be there since the simulator doesn't have a camera. And that's a lot better. Well, we still need to fix those dark screens, those useless screens. So let's go here where we're adding our camera action. And inside, we're going to explicitly ask request for our media type. Request access for media type AV, media type video. And our completion handler returns a Boolean that we will call granted. If granted, then we'll show our image picker. We'll do the same thing for our photo library, but we'll need to call ph photo library request authorization, and this completion is a enum we'll call status, and we'll check this enum if status equals ph authorization status dot authorized, then we'll present our image picker. We need to do a little cleanup here. Remember that these completion handlers are called on an arbitrary queue. So we'll need to make sure that when we present our controller, we're doing it on the main queue by calling dispatch queue.main.async. And we'll do the same for the photo library, dispatch queue.main.async. Starting to see there's some code here that can be refactored. Why don't we do that right now? I'm going to extract this method and we'll put it down here, and I'm going to call it display picker. And we're going to pass in this function the type that we're going to check for, UI image picker controller source type. Let's change this to type, and this to type. And up here, we're simply going to call our method. Display picker. And we'll pass the type as photo library for the photo library. And we'll copy this and paste it here. And change this to camera. Great. Let's run this again on my phone and we'll see what happens. Now I deleted the app and reinstalled it, so we should get the prompt again. We say use camera. You can see that this is already a much better experience for the user. Use photo library. Don't allow. At least they're not hanging there with useless screens or blank screen. So now we've verified the availability of our devices, and we've also verified that the user has granted permission before we show them the camera or the photo library. Next, we're going to respond to the 4 possible authorization statuses your app may be set to. For both the camera and the photo library, they are not determined, where the user has not yet granted nor denied permission; authorized, the user has explicitly allowed access; denied, the user has explicitly denied permission; and restricted, where the user is not allowed permission, generally due to things like parental control and the such. So let's handle these in the same order, starting with not determined. We'll first retrieve the current authorization status by calling AV capture device, authorization status for media type video. If status equals dot not determined, we will do what we were doing before. We'll ask for request and display our picker. Next, if status equals authorized, then we can simply display our picker. If the status is restricted, there's really not a whole lot we can do. There are reasons this is restricted, and all we can do is alert the user. So let's write a function to handle that. We'll call it handle restricted. And handle restricted will basically display an alert, just telling the user that they can't access media. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy and paste this code here. I'm creating an alert controller. We'll call it media access denied, and we explain this device is restricted from accessing any media at this time. Let's make this a little bit more generic, and we'll handle our iPad popover and present it here. Next, we will check for status equals denied, and let's also write a function called handle denied. And in handle denied, I'm going to copy and paste some code as well. And what we're doing here is telling the user that media access is denied. Our app, Camera Tutorial, does not have access to use your device's camera or media. The reason I'm changing this is because we're going to use this for the photo library as well. And we want to give them a call to action, please update your settings. We'll give them an action to go to settings. In that action, we use our app's instance to open a URL for UI application open settings URL. Handle the iPad and display our controller. We're going to be doing the same thing for the photo library, but instead of using AV capture device, we're going to use the PH photo library to get the status. I am going to copy this code just to save us a little bit of time, but there will be some changes that we'll have to make in order to make this work for the photo library. As you can see, there's a lot of duplicate code here. We can definitely start refactoring this code a little bit, but I'll let you guys do that on your own applications. You might have specific classes that can handle things a little differently. I'm not going to worry too much about it here. So like I said, instead of calling a vCapture device, we're going to call PH photo library authorization status, and that will return our enum that we can check against. And it's basically the same: authorized, restricted, denied, and not determined. Let's run this. And if this is the first time we're running this app, when we tap on our profile image and we choose use camera, we're going to receive our access for permission. And in this case, let's click OK. Camera comes up. We'll cancel this. We'll do the same for the photo library, and we'll tap don't allow. Now, when we tap again and choose the photo library, we should get an alert saying we have denied access, and we should go to settings. If I tap on settings, it takes me to settings, and I can change whatever I'd like. Go back to our app, and now I should have access again. Now, last but not least, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about when to ask for access for media and how to prevent users from clicking don't allow. And the biggest thing I'd like you to remember is you do not want to ask a user for access until you really need it. The last thing most of us app users like to see is something like this, where you open up the app and automatically you're bombarded with requests for camera or microphone or your contacts, personal information, where you don't really know what the app is going to do with it and why they're asking for this information. And make sure when you do ask that it is crystal clear what they're going to get in return if they press that allow button. Some apps are pretty obvious. Apps like Instagram obviously need access to your camera if you want to publish anything. Social apps need access to your friends list, and so on and so forth. Once the user taps don't allow, they have to actually get out of your app in order to reverse that decision. So it's not the best experience for the user. So getting access the first time is very critical. The best approach in order to minimize this is by using pre-permission dialogues. And by that I mean, before the user receives the system's request for permission, we can show them our own version of our dialogue and ask for permission. If they deny that permission, they don't necessarily deny the permission at the system level. And then reversing that decision will be a lot easier in your app. I'm not going to code anything here because depending on your app, this could be very different for each one of us. But basically, you want to save the response the user gives you. And maybe at a later time, you can ask them again. Or if they really try to use something that requires access, you can prompt them once again and say, hey, this access has been denied previously, but in order to use this functionality, would you like to grant access at this time? You're going to find that a lot more users will grant permission at the system level if you use a pre-permission dialog the first time around. Well, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you guys learned how to properly handle requesting access for media in your apps. And I hope I gave you some ideas on how to give the user a better experience and help prevent some undesirable situations and just generally make things a little nicer for your user. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and thanks for watching.